Let us start. I will summarize what we have learned so far, and then we will proceed with our fourth session. As I've told you yesterday, this is a sort of a conclusion to our first three sessions. In our first three sessions, we learned how we plan a case of uniapical frontal plane deformity. Okay, and now as we have done the planning, now we are going to correct the deformity. Okay, we will quickly I will quickly summarize what we have learned so far, and then we will move to our current session. This is a very important session because all the planning, the purpose of all this planning is that we can correct our deformities in a proper way. So let me turn this. What we have learned so far is the rule of how to draw a reference line, root of opposite angles, joint orientation, importance of joint orientation. In today's session, you will come to know how are we going to correct the joint orientation and limb alignment. You all know how to draw joint orientation lines. And how to mark the center of the joints, mechanical axis of the limb, mechanical axis of the individual bone, the nomenclature, and the malalignment test, the 4 questions of the malalignment test. In our second session, we discussed how to measure, how to calculate, how to assess the uniapical frontal plane deformity of tibia, in which we came to know that the mechanical axis and the anatomical axis of tibia are parallel, but the anatomical axis is slightly medial. Well, in femur, anatomical axis starts from the piriform fossa and it ends medial to the center of the knee joint at a point which is in line with the medial eminence of the tibial spine. And the mechanical axis starts from the center of the femoral head and ends at the apex of the femoral notch. And the nomenclature, I'm not going to go into the details. I'm sure by now you all have summarized these reference values. Satar, are you hearing me fine?
Yes.
Okay. So now I'm going to start with our session. Okay, this was the first case, the first exercise that we did when we started our second session. And by now you all can understand that this is a case of an obvious case of the deformity of the tibia. And how do we proceed? First, we draw mechanical axis of the limb starting from center of the femoral head to the center of the ankle joint. Afterwards, with this, we realize that the line is passing medially, which means that there is a mechanical axis deviation in the medial direction. which means that this limb has got a varus deformity. The next step was we were going to draw in joint orientation lines of the individual bones. Okay. Then we do a mechanical axis of the femur, and look, the lateral distal femoral angle mechanical is 87 degrees, which is normal. So we can say that there is no deformity in the femur, and the above the angle is 89 degrees. The lateral proximal femoral angle is 89 degrees. So it is again normal. Now what are we going to do? Now we are going to come to tibia. Since the mechanical axis of the femur is normal, what we can do is we can simply extend the axis downwards because it is normal. But first let us draw a mechanical axis connecting center of the tibia to the center of the ankle joint. Here, as we can see, the mechanical medial proximal tibial angle is 74 degrees. The normal is 87 degrees. So it is less. Same is the case. The lateral distal tibial angle is 108 degrees, while it should be normal 90 degrees. So both the angles are disturbed, and when I told you that when both the angles are disturbed, you can say that the deformity is somewhere in the middle. It is not close to the joint. Now, how are we going to pinpoint the location of the deformity? The third question of the malalignment test: what is the location of the deformity? We are going to draw the reference lines now. Okay, the reference line for the upper tibia is you can see is 87 degrees. Because the angle of the femur was normal, I have simply extended the mechanical axis of the femur, and this has also given me the reference angle for the upper part of the tibia, for the proximal mechanical axis reference line. If there was something wrong with the femur, then instead of extending the angle, the line of the femur, I would have drawn an 87 degrees line. It have made no difference. Okay, here I can do both. I can simply extend the line, or I can draw a 87 degree line. Okay, why I have drawn the line? Because I want to show you the aim of our correction is I want to bring the center of the ankle in line with the mechanical axis of the limb. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a 90-degree line like this in the center. Okay, this is the reference line of the distal tibia of the ankle joint, normal lateral distal tibial angle. Okay, this has given me the location of the deformity. Sorry, this has given me the location of the deformity, and What is the magnitude of the deformity? The last part is, it is 31 degrees. I've told you that as a rule we take the lesser angle as our reference. So 31 degrees is the magnitude of our deformity. Now coming to the fourth session. Now up till now we have planned the deformity. Now we have got a full planning. We know that femur is normal. The cause of deformity is in tibia, and it is in the mid diaphysis. We have traced the exact location of our deformity, and we also know the magnitude of the deformity. It is 31 degrees. Now coming to the second step, how are we going to correct the deformity? Here we have got three rules, so-called rules of osteotomy. Basically, the main purpose of devising these rules are, let me demonstrate you, and then we can, while I'm demonstrating, I'll keep on explaining to you by showing you, making different scenarios. One thing is, which you have noticed, you can see here, it is 31 degrees. You can see another angle here. It is a straight line. I've cut this. One second, please. Okay, sorry. I have cut this. It's a straight line, and it is been divided into 4 parts by this one line, and now this line has been divided into 3 angles, 4 angles, and the opposite rule of opposite angles states that this angle must be equal to this angle, and this angle must be equal to this angle. So this 149 here is also 149 here, 31 here is also 31 here. So what is the use of this big angle? Okay, there is an entity which is called a bisector. Let me tell you about it in detail. What is the half of 149 degrees? So, around 75 degrees, I guess. Okay. This is the half. I have cut this 149 degrees into 2 equal halves. Okay, same here, same here. This angle has been divided into 2 equal halves. So I have bisected this larger angle. Okay, it's a bisector line which has divided this larger angle into 2 equal halves. This line is called the ACA. The ACA, the angulation correction axis. And the name is self-explanatory, that this axis, if we do our correction along this axis, the deformity will correct. And if we, what will happen if we move away from this axis, the deformity, obviously there will be something wrong with the deformity after we have corrected it. So the rules of osteotomy are to tell us where we need to do the osteotomy and where we want to rotate, where we want to place the hinge of our correction. As you can see, there is going to be a rotatory movement now, and all the rotatory movements occur on a hinge, on a fixed hinge. Let me show you an example. We're gonna spend maximum time on this one X-ray. And once everything is understood, then we can quickly move to our next x-rays. So I have done an osteotomy along my angulation correction axis. I've done the osteotomy. I took a oscillating saw in my hand, and I cut the bone like this. Okay. Afterwards, I placed my hinge here. Hinge necessarily does not mean the hinge of an Ilizarov. No matter what kind of surgery you do, if you do an opening wedge osteotomy, or what you do is you try to preserve, you don't try to break the forecortex, and when you open up the osteotomy, so basically what you're doing is you are maintaining the intact hinge on the convex side of your deformity. And even if you do a closing wedge osteotomy, you do the same. You try to keep the forecortex, the concave cortex intact, so that there is correction and no translation. So the hinge is on the concave side. Now, while maintaining my hinge over the convex side, I did an opening wedge osteotomy, and which resulted in complete restoration of the mechanical axis and the joint orientation lines. Let me show you. Here you can see the mechanical axis of the limb is straight in line now. It is passing through the center of the knee joint. All the joints are now in line, and we have completely corrected the deformity. So in this scenario, what we did an osteotomy which was on the angulation correction axis. Our hinge was also placed over the angulation correction axis, and it resulted in complete correction of our deformity, which means that both the mechanical axis of the limb also got restored and joint orientation lines also got restored. Abdul Sattar, are you still here?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Are there any questions so far?
No, sir.
Okay, so I can simply proceed. If anything you want to know so far, you're free to ask. I'm going to spend another 15 minutes on this same X-ray. Then we are going to proceed. So yes, someone has asked that bisector and ACA are same. Yes, the bisector of the large angle, bisector is not a terminology. Okay, while we are planning the correction, you won't say that I have done an osteotomy along my bisector. Okay, bisector simply means a line which has bisected the larger angle. Okay, when we bisect the larger angle, we get a reference line which is called angulation correction axis. Okay, I hope I'm clear. By bisector, I mean that the line which has bisected the larger angle into two equal halves. Okay, and the second question that Asad is asking is osteotomy should be along ACA. This is what we are here to discuss. The first rule of osteotomy is you have done the osteotomy along the ACA and you have placed your hinge on the ACA, and this will result in complete resolution of your deformity, complete orientation of joint lines, okay, reorientation of your joint lines. Okay, this is rule number 1. Okay, now let us create another scenario. Let's first spend some time on rule number 1, osteotomy. Okay, this is now when, let's say, This is a planning which you have done over, let me share the screen again. Okay. Now you can see. Now let us discuss different scenarios. This is a line diagram basically. This is a sketch and we have corrected the osteotomy over a sketch. Same will happen if you have a scanogram. You will do your drawing and then you will complete your osteotomy. Let's suppose that then when you are doing the surgery, how are you going to replicate the same on an actual bone? This is an important aspect that you need to know. There is a general rule which is which I'm sure Satar, please mute yourself. Those who have okay, now in a scenario, how are we going to replicate the same results on an actual bone? This is what is very important. As I told you earlier, a scanogram is an X-ray which does not have got any magnification. It is an 100% zoomed X-ray, not over magnified, not under magnified. So if you measure an area of 2 centimeters in a scanogram, in actual bone, it should also be 2 centimeters. So this should be clear. And I'm sure you have also read a rule that 1 degree of correction, for 1 degree of correction, you need to remove or add 1 millimeter of bone. This is not a real method. This does not happen. Okay. How are you going to plan? If you want to plan, let's suppose in this X-ray, we are going to plan a closing wedge osteotomy because it's a mid-diaphyseal fracture. You don't want to add bone here. You have planned that you're going to correct this deformity by putting in an intramedullary nail, and you just plan that you're going to shorten the limb a little bit and simply close it and put a nail. So how do you know that you have removed adequate amount of bone? Okay. Now, in this scenario, we have planned a closing wedge osteotomy. So, when doing a closing wedge osteotomy, obviously you are going to place your hinge on the concave side and then you will do a closing wedge. So, this is the final picture. So, when you have done a closing wedge osteotomy, how do you know that how much bone needs to be removed? You can't simply remove extra bone, then put it back in the form of a graft. You need to plan yourself before you jump into the surgery. You need to measure, look, now let me zoom it up. It is a bit conceptual. You need to pay full attention. When you are doing an osteotomy, closing wedge osteotomy, half of the wedge is the hinge would be centered here. Half of the osteotomy wedge would go up and half down. If you have planned, let's suppose you have planned that you want to remove about 2 centimeter of bone. Obviously you want to remove half of the bone from above and half of the bone from below, so that when these two lines meet, they meet in the center. So how are we going to discuss, how are we going to assess how much bone needs to be removed? It's very simple. As you can see, it is a 31 degrees of deformity. So you need to draw the half of 31 is roughly 15 degrees. So what you will do here is you will draw a line, a 15-degree line here, and then a 15-degree line here. Okay. So this line, let me mark this. This mark line, the area which comes in between is the actual size of the wedge that you need to remove in order to completely correct your deformity. And how do you just simply draw two lines and then with the help of a scale measure the length. Since it is an unmagnified X-ray, the amount of millimeters that you will measure on an X-ray would be the exact length of the wedge that you need to remove in order to correct the deformity. Let me demonstrate it to you. So I've selected this line. When you will see, when this line will overlap this line, the deformity will be corrected. I need to zoom. I need to zoom out. There you go. When these two lines have joined, they have corrected the deformity. This is the only way by which you can correctly assess the amount of wedge that you need to remove in order to correct the deformity, or how much bone you need when you are planning an opening wedge. The rule that 1 millimeter is equal to 1 degree of correction does not apply anywhere. If the bone is thin, you will need less bone. If the bone is thick, when we will do a metaphyseal area planning, you'll see that we will need to open more. We will need to open more wedge in order to gain small correction. So it really, a lot of things matter when we are planning the correction, not just 1 millimeter equals 1 degree of correction. So this all was rule 1 osteotomy, that we have done our osteotomy along the angulation correction axis. The hinge was also along our angulation correction axis, and this has corrected the deformity. So if we plan that, what will happen if we move our hinge away from the bone? This is the angulation correction axis. As long as we are on our angulation correction axis, there will be always complete resolution of deformity, okay? No matter where we are. Let me show you. If, let's suppose, if there is a patient who has got deformity and there is a shortening as well. So you're planning that I want to apply an Ilizarov, I want to correct the deformity, and while doing so, I also want to lengthen the limb. So what you can do is you can move your hinge away from the bone on the convex side, and by this way you will gain extra length. This is how your correction will look like. In all this area, there has been new bone formation. So you have gained length. In another scenario, if there is a deformity, let's see there is a 45 degrees of deformity, and you think that if you acutely correct the deformity, there is going to be vascular compromise. So the other safe option is that you do a small amount of shortening. So how can you plan your shortening? You can simply move your angulation correction, this hinge medially. This will give you a deformity correction along with shortening. But in this scenario, if you are applying an Ilizarov, you can't do a shortening like this because the overlap of bone won't allow you. So what this does is, with this technique, you can plan how much bone that you want to remove. Let me show you. that you plan that you're going to place your hinge here, and from here you can draw a 15 degrees line and place your hinge over here. So I've decided that I have moved my hinge medially. So now this is the location of my hinge. Roughly, this is the location of my hinge now, and I have drawn 215 degrees line on either side. Now removing this much bone will give me correction and my desired shortening. Satar, why are you not attending the questions? There are questions which are being asked. One has asked Cora and ACA are the same. Look, the Cora, what does Cora stand for? The center of rotation of angulation. Cora is a fixed point. This is Dr. Satar.
Yes, sir.
Why are you not attending the questions? I've allowed you that you can unmute yourself. Please, you should intervene now so that I can carry on with my lecture uninterrupted.
Okay, sir.
So the one of them has asked a question that, yeah, there is. Star, why have you not connected your headphone? So one of you have asked a question that what is the Cora and ACR same? No, the Cora stand for center of rotation of angulation. It is this point, this exact point. When we have joined these two lines, the union of these two lines gave us a point, an exact point. This exact point is known as the Cora, the center of rotation of angulation. Okay, if we place our hinge on this point, if we place our hinge on exactly this point, this will give us a perfect correction. Okay, I've placed my hinge over here, and this will give me a perfect correction. But since we don't do this, we don't place our hinge on the middle of the bone, because in order to do this, we will have to do a very complicated osteotomy, that we will be opening one half and closing the other half, as you can see over here. So we move our hinge along the angulation correction axis. So let me rephrase. This exact one point where the two lines have met is the Cora, the center of rotation of angulation. And when we have bisected the larger angle into two equal halves, this line, the line which has been drawn along this bisector, is known as the angulation correction axis. I hope I am clear. There was another question which was being asked. how can we move hinge practically this far from the bone? That was what I was telling you, that when we are applying an Elizarov fixator, I will show you in my cases which I have selected, that if we have done simultaneous lengthenings as well, so what we do is we move our hinge while looking at a C-arm. We move our hinge, we don't place our hinge exactly on the bone. We move it medial or lateral. This gives us our desired correction. But what I'm telling you is that if you're planning an osteotomy and you want to simply take out a wedge and you want to close it, this is a diagram. You have to plan it. So now you have marked, you have decided that you want 2 centimeters of shortening as well. What you will do is you will place your hinge a bit medially, and then you will draw your lines, and then you will measure using a scale how much bone you need to remove. If you feel that with this technique you only 1 centimeter of bone needs to be removed, you can, on your diagram, you can move your hinge further medially and then again draw the lines and then measure it. Okay, and now after I've drawn the line, let me show you now.
So that you're asking about the lengthening. How much lengthening can be done in a single go?
Let me show you this. Now look, the deformity has been corrected along with the shortening. Okay, there is no rule, there is no fixed rule which tells you that how much bone you can remove in an acute setting. Generally it is understood that if the normal soft tissue envelope is there, how much lengthening you can do or how much closing that you can do, shortening you can do, it depends upon multiple factors. What is the condition of the soft tissue envelope? If there is a circumferential scarring, obviously it will not allow you much lengthening or shortening. If the patient's limb is surviving on collaterals or on one vessel, it will not allow you that much lengthening or shortening. And if the bone is normal, the soft tissue envelope is normal, it will allow you, obviously it will allow you more shortening or more lengthening. So as a rule, usually up to 2 inches, 4 centimeters of bone of lengthening you can achieve in an acute setting, as long as there is a normal soft tissue envelope. So again, this is not a fixed rule, and as a rule, up to 25 degrees. And there's a general rule that deformities of up to 25 degrees can be corrected in an acute setting, and anything beyond 25 degrees carry a more risk of a neurovascular compromise. Now, there are people who will say that I have corrected a 35-degree deformity, I've corrected a 40-degree deformity acutely. So just because a person has got 1 or 2 experiences in which he did not damage the limb does not mean that this is not going to happen to most of them. So as a general rule, if the deformity is more than 25 degrees, it is advisable that you correct it in a gradual way, not acutely. Okay. So now we have discussed the rule 1 osteotomy. In this osteotomy, our hinge was along the angulation correction axis, and our osteotomy was also along the angulation correction axis. So what is rule 2 osteotomy? What is the second rule of osteotomy? Now let's see if, yes.
Dr. Asal is asking, if
Yes,
we
yes.
do lengthening, do
Yes.
lengthening, it creates a gap between the bones.
Yes.
Then how it will be go and unite it?
Let me show you. Let me stop because you all are having consumed. Let me show you an example, and then we can proceed. Let me simply show you an example how the gaps get filled. Okay. Can you all see the PowerPoint presentation slide now?
No, sir.
Uh, are you able to see the PowerPoint presentation slide?
No, sir.
Let me restart it. PowerPoint. Now can you see the PowerPoint presentation
Yes.
slide?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is an X-ray. This is a patient. He was a young boy of about 14 years. He had damage to the lateral physis of the distal femur, which resulted in a deformity. Now he had, as you can see in this bone, he had a 27 degrees of deformity, and along with he had about 3 centimeters of lib length discrepancy. So in this patient, I plan to correct, not just correct the deformity, also gain some length while correcting the deformity. This was my planning. Okay. In this patient, the cora, as you can see, the angulation correction axis is passing over here. Rule 1 osteotomy would have stated that I should have done an osteotomy over here, but as you can see, the condyle ends up over here. I cannot do an intra-articular osteotomy. So I plan to do an osteotomy away from the cora. And this was my final picture, that I wanted to do the osteotomy. Now, it was a rule 2 osteotomy. You'll know when I'll discuss it. But as you can see, there is so much gap there. I just want to tell you, this was the pre-operative planning. This hinge was a bit medially placed along the angulation correction axis, and the end result was there was distraction, and all the gap which was created, which was filled by new bone. Okay, and in the end, you can see all the new bone consolidated, and I have gained from here to here. As you can see, I have gained about 3 centimeters of length as well. This is how bone gap gets filled when you do a gradual correction, gradual opening. Okay, I hope this clarifies it. Now I am going to move to my now you can all see the planning page. Star, what can you see now?
So the previous scanogram on which we are drawing.
Okay. So now we're going to move forwards. Are there any questions so far?
No. All clear.
Okay, let's proceed. Okay, now I'm going to move to the second rule of osteotomy. As I showed you in my example case, the osteotomy was not done exactly along the angulation correction axis. Why would this happen? There are many scenarios in which you cannot do this. Let's suppose that this patient, the X-ray of this patient, actually this patient developed an open fracture. Afterwards, he had this angulation, and the open wound healed with scarring. Now, on this location, there is tethering of skin. The skin is tethered to this part of the bone, so you cannot touch this part. How are you going to correct the osteotomy, correct this deformity? By not touching this area. So the obvious answer is you need to move your osteotomy away from this angulation correction axis. And what will happen when you do this? Now let's suppose I plan my osteotomy. I do an osteotomy over here. Okay. Now I have, I think I have to reopen this. Sorry. I have to, let me reopen it. Okay. Now let's quickly draw the lines. Now, okay. Now, I have planned that since the skin at the exact deformity site over my cora is not good, so I'll have to do an osteotomy, which is away. So I have planned an osteotomy right here. And now I'm going to simply, I planned that I'm going to apply a plate. I'm going to bend a plate and I'll apply a plate. Let's suppose I'm going to correct the deformity by applying a plate. So in this scenario, I'll simply keep my hinge where I've done the osteotomy, and I will correct the deformity. Now in this scenario, this line has restored the limb alignment, the lateral distal femoral angle, the joint orientation, the lateral distal femoral angle is 89 degrees. But now, as you can see, what has happened? This is where the mechanical axis lies now. The mechanical axis is passing through the medial malleolus of the ankle. So, though I have corrected the magnitude of deformity, I have balanced the joint orientation lines, but I have not corrected the axis of the limb. As you can see now.
Sir, excuse me.
Yes, yes.
Dr. Faisal is asking from the previous rule number
Yes.
1 for the
Yes.
osteotomy, how we know how away from the osteotomy should be achieved by the gradual correction and our desired length.
You need to
After placing the
okay, that's what I'm saying. That this is why we do this pre-operative planning. I will do my planning first. I will move my hinge 1 centimeter away from the medial, away from the convex, a convex part, and then I will open up the deformity, and then I will assess how much length I have gained. Okay, and I will then I will let me show you. Let me show you. In this X-ray, look, I have corrected the limb. Okay, what will I do? I will take a measuring tape, and in the end of my correction, I will put the one end of the tape over the head of the femur, other at the ankle, and I will measure the length. And as I also know the desired length of my normal side, I will see whether I have corrected the desired length or not. If not, then I will again move my hinge a bit more medially, 1 centimeter more medially, and then again I will do the opening, and then I will measure. Okay, this is the only way through which you can assess, you can correct the lengthening and the deformity by checking it. Okay, but right now, if you confuse yourselves with trying to achieve lengthening as well as correction, you'll confuse yourselves. So let us first focus on the rules of osteotomy. How can we correct the deformity? And in the end, we can then discuss how to achieve lengthening and correction. Don't please confuse yourselves right now. Okay?
okay.
So in this X-ray, as you can see, if I move my mechanical axis to the center of the knee, so the center of the ankle joint, my mechanical axis has shifted laterally. So when I do an osteotomy, which is away from the cora, and also I place my hinge, which is away from the cora, what happens is, though I correct the joint orientation, but mechanical axis of the limb is not restored. Another scenario, if I say that I want to correct the if look, this was my initial line. I say that I want to correct the mechanical axis, but not the joint orientation line. Look, I have placed my wedge here and I have stopped where the center of the ankle is. Now, in this scenario, the mechanical axis of the limb has been restored, as you can see. But what has happened over here? As you can see now, the lateral distal tibial angle now is 96 degrees. So though I have corrected the mechanical axis of the limb, I have created varus. There is a residual varus over my ankle joint. So the joint orientation has not been restored. So this is what happens usually when you do your corrections without proper planning. You simply do an osteotomy, you don't know where the cora is, you just see the limb has been aligned, you pass 2 Steinman pins and give a plaster. This is what you're doing.
This is what you're doing.
Someone has again unmuted himself. So this is what you are doing. You are not correcting the joint orientation, just you are trying to focus on the mechanical axis of the limb. This is rule 3 osteotomy. Rule 3 osteotomy, in which the osteotomy is not along the angulation correction axis and the hinge is not on the angulation correction axis, which results in a deformity and we have corrected a deformity by creating another deformity. If you simply ignore the bone which is lower down, you see that we have created a valgus. So we have in an attempt to correct the varus, we have created a valgus. So in an attempt to correct the varus deformity, we have corrected the deformity by creating a compensatory valgus deformity. Okay, this is rule 3 osteotomy. Basically, this is rule 3 osteotomy is what you should never do. This is a not to do osteotomy. You should never attempt correcting your deformity by a rule 3 osteotomy. Okay, so what other option that we have got? We have corrected a deformity. We have to correct a deformity, but we cannot someone is pushing we should restore mechanical axis or joint orientation line. Which is important? Both are important. You cannot get away with your deformity correction by just correcting one aspect. You have to restore the both aspects. Okay, this was the first part of my first statement of my first lecture. Okay, so what other option that we have got? So we cannot do an osteotomy over the ACA, but we want to restore that. What other option we have got? Now, if we simply do this, that we plan our osteotomy away from the cora, but we keep our hinge which is at the cora. What is going to happen now? As you can see, the deformity has corrected itself, but it has the deformity has been corrected, joint orientation lines have been restored, but as you can see, the joint orientation has been restored, but we have corrected the deformity by creating a translation over our osteotomy side. So rule 2 osteotomy is when you do your osteotomy away from the cora, but you keep your hinge on your angulation correction axis. By doing this, you correct your deformity by doing a translation. Okay, so now if in this scenario, if you plan to fix, how are you going to fix your bone? If you get a bone like this, obviously nail would not be an option. And if you want to acutely correct it, so the contact area of which is any less than 50% won't be acceptable. So you need to plan your osteotomy. So if for a diaphyseal fracture, If I want to correct an osteotomy using rule 2 osteotomy, I cannot go that far away from the bone. So I will have to plan my osteotomy accordingly. So what I will do, I will try to stay close. Or the other option is, I can simply redraw the line. The other option is that I will make an oblique osteotomy rather than a transverse one, so that it will increase the surface area. So I will do a correction like this. So by doing this, now I have got 70% of the contact, which is acceptable, and I have corrected the deformity. So this is rule 2 osteotomy. So the rule 2 osteotomy states that I have corrected the deformity by translation. Okay, there is a translation at my osteotomy. The apex, the hinge is over the angulation correction axis, while the osteotomy is away from my angulation correction axis. Are there any more questions regarding these 3 rules of osteotomy? Afterwards, I'll move towards, I will show you a few more examples. So let us move to a metaphyseal
In
osteotomy.
both, excuse me, sir.
Yes.
In both rule 2 and 3, translation will occur, or only
No,
in
no,
rule
no,
2?
no, 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 no. In rule 3 osteotomy, there is no translation because you have placed the cora over the hinge over the osteotomy. Okay. Let us move to another X-ray, and while correcting that, we can discuss the osteotomies again and again. We're going to discuss these osteotomies again and again. This is an X-ray which is which all of you observe many times in the cases where there is varus in the knee joint and you want to open it up, high tibial osteotomy to correct to save the joint.
Sulman was asking for the fixation of 70% osteotomy contact area.
You can
we use the nail or plate.
Look, rule 2 osteotomy, the easiest way to do a rule 2 osteotomy is through an Ilizarov fixator. Okay, the easiest ways. Obviously, in cases where rule 1 osteotomy is not applicable, these are not straightforward cases. The best way is that you go for an Ilizarov fixator. If not, you can obviously apply a bridge plate over there. There will be some gap. There are many other ways, but the best way is that you fix with a Ilizarov fixator. In this case, you will see how we will do a rule 2 osteotomy, and then again we'll fix it with a plate. You'll see right now. Again, let's. Okay, in this scenario, let us. Okay, as you can see, it's a varus knee. No need to look any further. And here you can see the lateral distal femoral angle is 88 degrees. So I'm going to quickly jump to the next session. And as you can see, by over here, the medial proximal tibial angle is 76 degrees, and the distal is normal. So we know that it's an intra-articular deformity because distal angle is normal. So what are we going to do is we're simply going to draw a reference line. Simply extend the reference line. Or we can even draw a line which is okay. So we have come to know that this is an intra-articular deformity. This is an intra-articular deformity. This is an intra-articular deformity. in this scenario, you simply cannot do an osteotomy like this. So the angle is 12 degrees. The magnitude of deformity is, this line is not exactly parallel. Okay. The magnitude of deformity is 12 degrees. Okay. So the larger angle is 168 degrees. So we will simply bisect it. The half of 168 would be 84 degrees. So this is the angulation correction axis. Okay. This line is the angulation correction axis line. So obviously we cannot do an osteotomy which is passing through the lateral tibial condyle. So what we can do here is we need to move away from this osteotomy site. So what is going to happen? Let's see. Let's think that we're going to do an osteotomy no matter what. We're going to do an osteotomy over here. We have placed the hinge over here, and see, we have corrected the deformity and we have restored the joint orientation and the deformity. But this osteotomy is not practical. Nobody is going to do an osteotomy which is passing through the tibial condyle. So what else can we do? We can either move to a Rule 2 osteotomy or a Rule 3 osteotomy. Okay, so I've decided I'm not going to do an osteotomy over here. So what will happen? Let's see, I say that I'm going to do an osteotomy which is below the tibial tuberosity. So I'm going to do an osteotomy over here. Okay, I'm going to stay safe. I'm going to do an osteotomy over here. And since I'm planning to apply a plate, I'm simply going to do an osteotomy. So now I can do two things. One thing, I can make the two lines parallel. What will they do is, by making these two lines parallel, the proximal mechanical axis line and the distal mechanical axis line, I will realign the joint orientation, but this will not restore the mechanical axis of the limb. Okay, sorry. Mechanical axis of the limb which has passed laterally. So in an attempt, if I want to correct the joint orientation, the mechanical axis, I will end up with an oblique ankle. Okay. So what can I do now? Rather than doing my Rule 3 osteotomy, what I will do is I will place my hinge over the original axis, and then I will do a translation. Okay, doing this translation, this line has slided a bit, no problem. So by doing this translation, I have corrected the joint orientation and the mechanical axis. So again, the problem will come with how are we going to fix it with a plate or a nail when we don't in this form. Okay, the other option is, the easier option is, I plan my osteotomy in such a way that it is as close to the angulation correction axis. How can I plan my osteotomy right now? I would start by this and I will go oblique. Okay, I would do an oblique osteotomy, and then I will keeping my over here. I will, let's keep the hinge all together over the axis. Okay, I've corrected the deformity because the apex of my osteotomy was very close to the original hinge point. There has not been much translation. I can simply fit it with a cortical with a strut graft and then apply a normal plate over here, a T plate. Okay. So this is by rule 2 osteotomy. I have corrected the metaphyseal osteotomy. Now what I was saying that in this scenario, as you can see, you have to remove more bone in the metaphyseal area to gain less correction as compared to the diaphyseal area because the surface area is more. Okay. Now, are there any more questions, or I should proceed to the femur deformities?
Please repeat the rule 3 osteotomy.
Rule 3 osteotomy. Okay, rule 3 osteotomy is a not to do osteotomy. Rule 3 osteotomy simply states that you see a leg which is in valgus or varus. What you do most of the times, and whenever you see a valgus, you say that valgus is in femur and varus is in tibia. This is what I am talking about. So you see a case of valgus and you say that because it's a case of valgus, I will do a supracondylar osteotomy. End of story. You will do an osteotomy, you'll straighten up the limb, you will pass 2 wires. You don't know where the cora is. You don't know where you have done an osteotomy. You don't know where your hinge is. That is basically a rule 3 osteotomy. When the apex of your deformity does not coincide with your osteotomy or your hinge. Okay, in this case, I will demonstrate it to you once again. In this case, again, as you can see, there is a deformity. I will draw joint orientation lines. These are the X-rays from yesterday. As you see now, the lateral distal femoral angle is 94 degrees and lateral proximal femoral angle is 100 degrees. When the lateral proximal femoral angle should have been 90 degrees and lateral distal femoral angle should have been 88 degrees. So we know that the deformity is in the femur. What we'll do here is we will first draw the proximal axis and then the distal axis. As I told you, we're going to draw the deformity using the rule of 3 lines. This is the anatomical mid-diaphyseal line. I'm going to draw a parallel line to that mid-diaphyseal line, and then I'm going to draw a 7-degree line.
Saad, can you hear me? Saad, can you hear me?
And then we're simply going to draw a distal line at 88 degrees. This will give us the location of our deformity. Okay. Now, this has given us the location of our deformity. Now, what is going to happen? We're going to draw an angulation correction axis by bisecting this line. As you can see now, the magnitude of the deformity is 14 degrees and the larger angle is 166 degrees. A T3 degrees line would be a mid-diaphyseal line now. This is the angulation correction axis. Because I am doing these corrections quickly, so 1 or 2 degrees above and below does not really matter. What really matters is you need to know how to do the osteotomy. Okay. this is, sorry, this is a little long. This is the now this is the angulation correction axis. So what was the rule 3 osteotomy? I'll first do demonstrate a rule 3 osteotomy, so that the question which was being asked, that I don't plan my surgery. I simply do an osteotomy which is away, and I've done an osteotomy which is away from the cora, and now I have planned and keeping my hinge at this osteotomy side, I've done a closing wedge osteotomy. Now what has happened? The deformity has been corrected in a sense that these two lines are parallel. The joint orientations have been restored. But as you can see, the mechanical axis of the limb is now going medial to the hip joint. So the deformity, the mechanical axis of the limb has not been corrected. And what I have done over here, you can see, if you simply ignore this above part, you can see here that to correct this varus, I have created a compensatory valgus. And you can see there is no translation because my hinge was over the osteotomy. So there is no translation. Okay. This is rule 3 osteotomy, and this is a not to do osteotomy. You never do a rule 3 osteotomy. If you do a rule 1 osteotomy over here, as I can show you.
So Dr. Asad is asking,
Yes.
In the femur planning of the deformity in femur, we are using 3 lines because of the proximal angle deformity.
Now, but I've told you that make a habit of getting the proximal reference line by using the 3-line technique, because in many of the cases of femur deformity, the hip orientation is not accurate. There is some problem with the neck shaft angle. There is sometimes overriding of greater trochanter. So the rule of 3 angle, either you do first you do the just a proximal line, then you do a rule of 3 line, or it's easier that you simply always take the proximal reference by using a rule 3 or rule of 3 lines. Okay, because it will not give you a wrong angle. Okay, so for just rather than first calculating the other one and then moving forwards, you just need to draw a line using the rule of 3 angles, and afterwards you can also always counter check your proximal. In this case it is 91 degrees. So in this case, since the proximal angle is normal, I could have calculated the proximal axis by both methods. I could have simply drawn a reference line or a rule of 3 lines, because rule of 3 line has a less chance of error. So that's why it's recommended that you do your plannings using the rule of 3 lines. Okay. So now in this scenario, I've done in my osteotomy along my angulation correction axis. I've decided that I'm going to put a nail in there. So I've marked an osteotomy. I'm going to do a closing wedge osteotomy. So the apex of my hinge is at the concave border, and I have simply corrected it. Now look what has happened. The mechanical axis has restored. There is no translation, and the femur has realigned. This is simply a rule 1 osteotomy. So what will happen if I don't place my hinge? If I don't do my osteotomy, there I want to do an osteotomy somewhere away. Okay. So what is going to happen now? As you can see now, since I've done my osteotomy at a site which is away from the, but I have placed my hinge over the angulation correction axis. Sorry. What has happened? I have created a translation, and the deformity has been corrected, and there has been no the joint orientation is normal and mechanical axis is also normal. Are there any questions so far?
Asad is asking, SN is asking,
Okay.
in the rule 3, both the osteotomy and hinges are not on ACA.
Okay. Yes.
It is simply, the answer is yes.
Yes, yes, yes. It is the hinges. Rule 1 osteotomy, ACA, the osteotomy and the hinges are at the ACA. Rule 2 osteotomy, the osteotomy is away from the ACA, but the hinge is on the ACA. Rule 3 osteotomy, neither your osteotomy, Rule 3 osteotomy is neither your osteotomy nor your hinge are on the ACA. So these are the three osteotomies. Rule 3 osteotomy is a not to do osteotomy. You never do a rule 3 osteotomy. Keep this in mind. So now I would like to show you a common scenario, a case of femur deformity. Most of the time you see an X-ray, a case of genu valgum. In this, there is a genu valgum and the deformity is in the distal femur. This is the most commonly what you encounter. So quickly, I'm going to draw a few lines. There. As you can see, the above angle is 85 degrees. The mean is 90 and the lateral distal femoral angle is 78 degrees. So there is a valgus. So what I need to do now is, all these angles can also be corrected using the, can also be calculated using the anatomical axis, and I have taught you that. So I'm not doing the planning using an anatomical axis. You can do with that as well, but always counter check your anatomical planning with the mechanical planning, because the aim of your correction is to restore the mechanical axis. So always counter check your anatomical planning with your mechanical planning. So if I want to do a anatomical planning, I would draw a line which is at 81 degrees and not 88 degrees. So in this case, I have done an anatomical planning and the deformity is 14 degrees. The bigger angle is 166 degrees. So what I'll do is I'll draw a line at 83 degrees. 83-degree line will give me a angulation correction axis. Okay, so this is the scenario which is encountered in most of the times. Everyone does a simple supracondylar osteotomy no matter where the deformity is, and they just pass 2 Steinmann pins and then pass the patient. This is basically what you're doing, a rule 3 osteotomy. This will not correct the deformity. So in this scenario, I plan to do an osteotomy. What will happen if I do an osteotomy at So I plan to do a closing wedge osteotomy, and I've done a closing wedge osteotomy. After closing the wedge, I can simply fix this by doing a retrograde nail. I can pass a retrograde nail and that would correct my deformity. Okay. The other option is like I encountered in my case, that I want to do some lengthening as well, or so I'm sorry, I'm not going to go into the details of the lengthening. First, just let's focus on how to correct the deformity. So in this scenario, if I want to do an osteotomy away from my original cora, what happens most of the time, I want to show you, when you do this and then you fix it with a DCS or a locking plate, you lateralize your shaft. What happens? Well, what you do most commonly, you do a simple osteotomy and supracondylar osteotomy, and then you simply open it. You open it, you place iliac bone stud graft, and then you open it up. Okay, this is what you do. And then, as you can see, Now the mechanical axis would pass medial. Okay, since I have done an anatomical planning in this patient, as you can see, it has not restored. And when you plan to fix it with a plate, you will end up by translating it as well. This is the end result would look like when you will fix it with the DCS plate. So this is not recommended. But if you have done an osteotomy, you can place your hinge over the original ACA. Then you can do a translation. And this is how you can restore the correction by using a Rule 2 osteotomy. Are there any questions so far? There are now there are many scenarios in our next sessions. The next session would be on multi-apical deformities. Now in our subsequent sections, in all the sessions, there is not much detail to be taught. In the first half, we will discuss the basic concept, and in the latter half, we will correct the scenarios. Now you all know the rules of osteotomies. So all the cases which we will discuss simultaneously in the later half of the session, we will correct the osteotomies as well using these rules of osteotomies. The next 3 sessions will proceed like this. So now I'm going to show you a few cases which will give you a better understanding of how deformity corrects. Satar, can you see the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, sir. Very clear.
Okay. So if this patient comes to you, as you can see, there is gross varus deformity. Can you all appreciate the scarring over here?
Yes, sir.
So there is scarring over here. The skin is tethered to the bone. Obviously, we cannot do an osteotomy. We cannot do an acute correction in this scenario because this scar will not allow us. This is the X-ray. As you can see, there is a deformity in the distal femur. Sorry, this is not supposed to be an LDFA. The cora, the magnitude of deformity is 14 degrees. And here, the magnitude of deformity is 58 degrees. This is a deformity. Tibia deformity is 58 degrees. And femur is in valgus with 14 degrees. So I cannot do, yes? So what I cannot do is that I simply undercorrect my tibia 14 degrees and this will balance out at the knee. This is not how things work. I have to correct both deformities in order to restore my joint orientation. So what I did was I did a dome osteotomy. I will discuss the dome osteotomy. It is another important aspect, how to do a dome osteotomy. I did a dome osteotomy and I corrected the axis of the distal femur using a DCS device. The lateral distal femoral angle has been restored to 81 degrees. And using a Rule 3 osteotomy, I corrected the tibia using a Rule 3 osteotomy. As you can see over here, the initial bone was there. Now the bone has translated. Now the bone has translated to over here. I have corrected the deformity through translation because I could not have I could not do my osteotomy. As you can see here, this is the cora and the apex of the deformity here is touching the medial condyle. I cannot do a Rule 1 osteotomy over here. So that's why I planned my osteotomy, Rule 2 osteotomy. I did my osteotomy lower down, but I kept the apex of my hinges over the angulation correction axis. This resulted in correction of the deformity by translation. And as you can see, the gap has been filled by a new bone. And now, as you can see, the deformity has been corrected. Joint orientation has been restored and limb alignment has been restored. So another case, this is a case of an achondroplasic male. This is what I was telling. Now look at the magnitude of the deformity. And now look what has happened to the proximal femur. I cannot take the reference of my this femur using my proximal femoral angle. So I had to calculate my deformity using the rule of three lines, and the cora came out to be 39 degrees. The magnitude was 39 degrees, and this is the X-ray. As you can see, the proximal femur. I cannot take the reference from this proximal hip. So the deformity was, this is how the surgery was done. You can see here the apex, the hinges were placed over the angulation correction axis. Osteotomy was done far away because I could not do, as you can see here, the angulation, the ACA comes to the medial condyle. I cannot do an intra-articular osteotomy, and the smaller segment will not allow me stable fixation. So I plan to do an osteotomy away from the cora. This is how the deformity was corrected. In the end, the bone was formed. Now what I face here, though the bone stock is quite adequate, but I wanted a little bit more bone. So what I did, when I did the osteotomy on the other side, I did an oblique osteotomy. And now, as you can see, so much bone is formed when I did an oblique osteotomy. But the same, the rule 2 osteotomy was applicable over here as well. As you can see now, the limbs have been corrected. This is another case. This is a case in which there is deformity in the femur and in the tibia as well. Again, here in this case, I did an osteotomy lower down. I translated the fracture as well, and then I fixed it, DCS, and the lower part was fixed using Ilizarov fixator. Again, a rule 3 osteotomy was done. Rule 2 osteotomy was done, which resulted in correction of both the axis and the orientation. This case we already discussed. This was the planning, translation, as well as distraction was done. And you can see the deformity corrected. This is a case of genu valgum. Not all the genu valgums are in femur. This is why I put this X-ray. Now, as you can see, there is sphere valgus in the tibia because of a bar that has formed because of a trauma here. Again, this boy has circumferential skin grafting. As you can see over here, the condition of the skin is not good. So just by doing a percutaneous osteotomy and through translation, deformity was corrected. Again, through translation. This is where the osteotomy was, and all the bone, this shaft was translated to the center. Okay. This is the girl which I showed you in my first session. She has got a shear knee, and the deformity came out to be in the femur and the tibia as well. As I told you earlier, there was valgus in the femur and varus in the tibia. Just by correcting the joint orientations, I did a closing wedge osteotomy over here and used the graft here, and this resulted in correction. Look at the condition of the other knee. Just correcting the other deformity, that there was no deformity in the femur on that side. The deformity corrected. Yeah, I'm going to discuss the dome osteotomy later on. We will discuss it in our later sections, how to do a dome osteotomy and what is a focal dome osteotomy. A very nice osteotomy. In this boy, there was valgus in femur and varus in tibia. Again, tibia was corrected using an Ilizarov fixator, and femur was corrected by using guided growth. And here you can see the deformity got corrected. This is a latest X-ray in which the guided growth had corrected the valgus in the femur as well. I think we should conclude our session by now. I will answer a few questions now. Sitar, are there any questions so far?
No questions. For all are cleared up, you know.
So by now we have discussed the rules of osteotomy. There is something going wrong outside. So right now we have discussed the rule of osteotomies. I hope they are clear. In our next 3 sessions, we will discuss the multi-apical deformities, the sagittal plane deformities, and the oblique plane deformities. And in all these sessions, we will, in the first half, we will do the planning, and in our second sessions, we will do the correction, so that these rules are repeated over and over. So I think there are no more questions.
No, sir.
Okay, so this concludes our session. Thank you for listening. We'll meet tomorrow on, not tomorrow, on next Monday. And the topic would be multi-apical deformities, when there are multiple deformities in a single bone. Take care. Allah Hafiz.